Hello everyone, welcome back to Tech Arcade News. This is Jenny. Really glad to have you here because we got a few good news today. Today is July 24, 2026. So here's the thread we're pulling on. Everyone in tech right now is fighting over one thing. It's not users, it's not apps. Yep, you got it right. It's the chips. The silicon that runs AI, basically. And today we got three pieces of news that fights all at once. AMD just threw its biggest punch yet at Nvidia, with a $5 billion deal built around one of the hottest AI companies on the planet. TSMC, the company that actually makes almost everybody's chips, is reportedly about to raise prices on all of them. And a tiny startup funded by 3 Harvard dropouts just got valued at over $10 billion for betting the whole company on a single chip design. 3 stories, one big theme, compute is a new oil, and everyone's drilling. Let's get into it. Story number 1, and this is a big one today. AMD is going all in on Anthropic. Just this week, AMD announced a partnership to deploy up to 2 gigawatts of its Instinct MI450 AI chips for Anthropic, the company behind the cloud models. And on top of that, AMD is investing up to $5 billion into Anthropic itself. So it's not just selling chips, it's actually also putting its own money in it. Let me unpack what that actually means, because the numbers are kind of wild. When people in this world said 2 gigawatts, they're not talking about the chips. They're talking about the electricity those chips pull when they're running. 2 gigawatts is roughly the output of 2 big nuclear reactors, and that's the scale we're at right now. We measure AI build-outs in power plants. AMD says the first gigawatt of that starts coming online in the first half of 2027. And Anthropic already runs some of its work on the earlier AMD chip, the MI455X. So this is building on something real, not starting from zero. Now, why is this happening this week specifically? Because AMD is holding its big Advancing AI event in San Francisco right now. And it used the stage to show off exactly what Anthropic is buying. The centerpiece is this thing called the Helios rack. And a rack, if you've never seen a data center, is basically a big cabinet the size of a fridge, packed with computers. But Helios is a monster. One Helios rack holds 72 of AMD's new MI455X GPUs, plus 18 of its next generation EPYC Venus server processors, all wired together to act like one giant brain. AMD says a single rack does 2.9 exaflops of a certain kind of AI math. An exaflop is a billion calculations a second. So 2.9 of them in one cabinet is a genuinely absurd amount of horsepower. And here's the part that matters, because this is a direct shot at Nvidia. Nvidia has its own version of this. It's called the NVL72 rack, and it's basically been the default for every serious AI company. AMD now is claiming Helios beats it. Specifically, AMD says, first of all, we deliver 15% more peak performance on the low precision math AI loves, packs 50% more high-speed memory, and also, in line with every finance chief's attention, we cut the cost per token by up to 30%. So token is just a unit of text and AI reads or writes. So cost per token is really the cost to run the entire AI. Cheaper tokens means cheaper AI. Now, I want to be fair here. Those are AMD's own numbers from AMD's own stage. So take it with a grain of salt until independent testers get their hands on it. But even the claim tells you something. So why does this matter to you? For 2 reasons, actually. First, Nvidia has owned this money. For years, it's been north of 80% of the AI data center chips. And when one company has that kind of grip, they set the price and everybody pays it. AMD landing Anthropic right after it signed a 6 gigawatt deal with OpenAI last fall, when OpenAI could even take up to 10% stake in AMD. That's the beginning of an actual second option. Competition is how prices come down and how the AI you use gets cheaper and faster. Second reason is this is a strategic bid. Anthropic is deliberately spreading its bet across Nvidia, Google's chips, and now AMD. Anthropic's own framing is that running across a diversified range of hardware lets them map the right workloads to the right chip. In other words, don't get trapped with one supplier. Every big AI company is trying to escape being at Nvidia's mercy. So this is the most serious challenge Nvidia has faced in years, and I don't say that lightly. AMD isn't just showing up with a chip, it's showing up with a full rack, real software, and customers willing to bet billions. Nvidia is still the king, let's be clear. The software lead is enormous, and that's a hard part to crack. But a year ago, the AMD story was maybe someday. Today, it's 2 gigawatts first half 2027, and that's a real timeline. The race just got very interesting. Okay, so story number 2. And this one is the quiet giant behind everything we just talked about. TSMC is reportedly getting ready to raise its prices. According to a report this week, TSMC is in talks to raise chip prices by up to 10% in 2027. And it's not just the cutting-edge chips, it's across the board, both advanced chips and the older, cheaper one. Let me make sure everybody is on the same page about why this is such a big deal. TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor, is a company that actually manufactures the chips. Nvidia designs its GPUs, Apple designs the chip in your iPhone, AMD designs those Instinct chips that we just talked about, but almost none of them build their own. They hand the blueprints to TSMC, and TSMC's factory in Taiwan turned them into real silicon. It's the most advanced manufacturing on the entire earth. And there's basically no one else who can do the hardest parts at the same level. So when TSMC nudges its prices up, it's not nudging one company, it's nudging the entire technology industry at the same time. The reports that TSMC's talks begin around June, and the increase will land in 2027, and it's roughly a 5 to 10% bump on the baseline, with even steeper premiums possible on the high-performance AI chips everyone's fighting over. Big customers like Nvidia and Apple are said to be in those conversations. The reasons are pretty straightforward. Building this stuff has gotten wildly expensive. The materials, the equipment, the power, all of it is going up. And TSMC is spending enormous money expanding, including an extra $100 billion poured into the new factories in Arizona. This brings its total US commitment to around $165 billion. So why does this matter to you? Because this is where the AI boom meets your wallet, eventually. If it costs Nvidia and Apple and AMD more to make every chip, some of that cost flows downstream. So it will be pressure on the price of your next phone, next laptop, and the monthly cost of every AI service you use. And it flips a story we've told ourselves for decades. The old rule in tech, it was that chips always get cheaper over time. In the AI era, demand is so insane that the most important factory on the planet has the power to raise prices instead. And customers mostly just have to take it. Honestly, I think this is the most underrated story in tech right now. Everybody watches Nvidia stock and the flashy model launches, but the real choke point, the real power sits in TSMC's factory. When a supplier that everyone depends on and can't replace decides it's raising prices, that's a tax on the whole industry. So I'll be watching to see if any customer actually has a leverage to push back. It will be a very interesting scenario. That brings up to our story number 3, which is a fun one. The underdog swinging for the fences. An AI chip startup called Etched just raised $300 million at a $10.3 billion valuation. And here's the kicker. The company was founded in 2022 by 3 Harvard dropouts, and it's just about double its valuation from $5 billion back in December to now $10.3 billion. That's 7 months to double. Sequoia led the run, and the list of backer is a who's who: Andreessen Horowitz, the memory chip giant SK Hynix, the trading firm Jane Street, and angels like Peter Thiel and Andrej Karpathy, who was a founding member of OpenAI, now over at Anthropic, and one of the most respected AI researchers alive. When Karpathy puts his own name on your chip company, people notice. So what is Etched actually doing that's worth $10 billion? So here's the bet. It's a bold one. Etched chip is called Sohu. It's what's known as an ASIC, an application-specific chip. Most AI runs on GPUs like Nvidia's, and GPU is like a generalist. It can run pretty much any kind of AI you throw at it. And ASIC is the opposite. It's a specialist, hardwired to do one thing and do it ridiculously fast. And Etched made a huge gamble. They burned one specific AI design, the transformer, the T in the ChatGPT, the architecture behind basically every model today, directly into the silicon. That's the whole company. So Etched has claimed that for that specific kind of work, Sohu can run models around 20 times faster and cheaper than Nvidia's older H100 chips. That's their claim. Not an independent test, but it's the promise investors are buying. So why does it matter, and why is it risky? It matters because the industry is quietly splitting in two. Training an AI, teaching it, is one job. Running it for millions of users, called inference, is a totally different job. And inference is where almost all the real-world cost is going to live, as this stuff gets used everywhere. Etched is betting that for inference, you don't want a flexible, do-everything chip. You want a screaming fast specialist. And there's real traction behind it. The company says it's already booked around $1 billion in order. But here's a gamble baked right in. If the transformer stays dominant AI design, Etched could be enormous. But if somebody invents a better architecture and the whole field move on, well, you can update software overnight, but you can't unburn a chip. So they basically bet the company on transformers staying on top. I love the bet, but it's also very risky. Nvidia's whole strength is flexibility, be ready for anything. Etched looked at it and said, no, we are going to be the fastest in the world at exactly one thing and pray the world doesn't change underneath us. That's either genius or a very expensive lesson. And there's not a lot of room in between. But you don't get real breakthroughs from people playing it safe. And honestly, 3 kids who drop out of Harvard now sitting at a $10 billion valuation, going head to head with Nvidia, that's the kind of story I started this show to tell. So let's zoom out a little bit. Everything today was really the same story. AMD spending billions to break Nvidia's grip, TSMC quietly holding the power to tax the whole industry, and a startup betting everything on one clever chip. AI gets all the attention, but the real war, the one that decides who wins and what you end up paying, is being fought in silicon. Compute is the new oil, and right now, everyone is scrambling for the drill. Thank you for listening today. If you get something out of it, do me a favor and hit subscribe. It really helps this show to grow. You can also comment down and tell me who you think is going to win this chip war. I read them all. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'm Jenny. This is Tech Arcane News, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.